Hi guys, hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time of stopping by, you're most definitely welcome. Please be a part of our tutorial. I promise it's going to be a very interesting one, guys. So in today's video, we'll be learning how to make an overlap skirt, or a tulip skirt in other words. If this is your area of interest, please kindly give this video a thumbs up if you find it so helpful, and don't forget to subscribe, okay? I promise it's going to be a very interesting one. So guys, let's sit back, relax, have a great time and enjoy the tutorial. So let's get started, okay? So guys, we'll simply proceed to drafting our pattern. And the full length of this pattern paper is about 39 inches, and this is fine for this project, okay? So we'll be working with this length, okay, for the overlap skirts. So guys, what I'll simply do next is to go ahead and place our vertical measurement. So the first vertical measurement to take note of is the hip line. So from the waistline to the hip line is about 8.5 inches. Between 8 to 8.5 inches is fine. So for me guys, from my waist to the hip is about 24 inches. From my shoulder to the waist is about 25 inches rather, I meant to say. And then from the waistline, the next measurement I'll take note of is the slit line. Okay, so I'll simply go ahead and draw a line. So you can take your measurement, determine where you want your slit to start from. So you can go ahead and place it below the hip line. Okay, so now, guys, what I'll simply do next is to place the quarter of my hip circumference on the hip line. So more like placing the horizontal measurement, but not upward. So I'm simply placing the quarter of my hip measurement on the hip line, on the waistline, on the slit line, and then on the hemline. So I'll go ahead and connect these points together, and the reason for this we'll get to find out as the illustration proceeds, okay? So guys, having done this, what I'll simply do is to place the quarter of my waist circumference on the waistline, and the quarter of my waist circumference there is 8.5, okay? So I'll go ahead and also place remove 1.5 inches from the hip line, and then I'll place it on the hemline. So if your hip measurement is 9.5, you simply remove 1.5 and you have 8 inches, okay? And then I'll place the same measurement on the slit line, and then I'll go ahead and establish the new curve, connect the 2 points together, okay? So for the curvy part, you use your curvy ruler, and for the straight part, you just use the straight part of your pattern master, or if you have a straight ruler, you can go ahead and use it to link up the lines together, okay? So this is the hemline. So guys, what I'll simply do next is to go ahead and insert the darts, okay? So have in mind that I have some space after placing my waist measurement, the quarter of my waist measurement, so I'm going to utilize it much later. So what I'll simply do next is to place my nipple to nipple measurement on my waistline, which is the distance between one nipple to the next. So just simply divide it by 2. So for me here, I have 4 inches. Okay, so from that point, I'll draw a perpendicular line downwards by 4 inches as well, and I'll mark half an inch on both sides, okay? So please take note, I'm trying to place my dart on the front pattern. So this is the front pattern. So I'll simply go ahead and link up these lines as you can see me doing, okay? So this is the dart. So I'm going to replace the dart intake here. So what I'll simply do is to mark 1 inch on the remaining allowance there, and I'll simply go ahead and blend it, okay, down to the hip line. So I'm using my curvy ruler to establish that, okay? So this is our new measurement, the new measurement we have taken after inserting the dart, okay? So I just have a little space there, which is about 1/4 of an inch, okay, after replacing my dart intake. So from that point, I'll just go up by 0.75. So basically, the essence of this is so that the skirts can fit in properly on the hip, okay? If it's actually straight like this, you might not actually get the fitting that you want, okay? So I'll just connect these 2 points together, and then I'll link it up to the waistline using the curvy part of my French curve or a curvy ruler to achieve this. So we're good here. So guys, I'll go ahead and cut out the excess pattern paper, and have in mind that I did not take any seam allowance for this pattern. Okay, so for the back pattern, guys, I simply went ahead to duplicate what I did for the front pattern. I didn't want to come and stress our minds by going through the same process as I did before. So the difference between the front and the back is the zip allowance. Okay, for those who know how to draft a skirt pattern, I'm sure you are very conversant with this. If you don't know, the difference between the front and the back is the zip allowance. Okay, and the zip allowance is exactly 1.5 inches. Okay, so this is the waist measurement, the same as the front pattern. So I'll simply go ahead and insert the darts, okay, which is what I am yet to do after drafting the back pattern. So the dart intake is still the same thing, just like the front, but the difference is the perpendicular line is 5 inches. I'll be coming down by 5 inches for the back. Okay, for the front I came down by 4 inches, but for the back I came down by 5 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect these 2 points together, and then I'll place my measuring tape on that line, and then I'll mark 0.5 inches on both sides, half an inch on both sides, and then I'll go ahead to connect it connect the 2 points together, as you can see me doing. So just watch me. For those who don't know how to place a dart, you just watch me. I'm sure you get to understand. Okay, so what I'll simply do, just like I did for the front pattern, is to replace the dart intake, which is 1 inch. So I'll just go ahead and mark it, and then I'll blend it up down to the hip line, or the hip curve rather. Okay, so I'll just blend this up like this. Okay, so from that point I will simply go up by the same 0.75 for the skirt thickness around the hip. Okay, so it's not a straight line. I won't be making use of a straight line, so I will just establish a curve around the waistline. So to actually achieve this, I will simply go up by 0.75, and for the back pattern on the waistline I'll come down by half an inch. Okay, for the back pattern, I'll take it again. For the back pattern, I'll come down by half an inch. Okay, and then I'll simply go ahead to link up these 2 points together. So I'll still use the same curvy ruler to link these 2 points. Okay, I'll simply link these 2 points together, and then I will extend it to the zip allowance. Okay, so I'll just simply extend this down to the zip allowance, as you can see me doing. So it's as easy as anything. It's nothing so difficult to achieve. Okay, so what I simply did next was to duplicate the front pattern. But have in mind, this is the front and the back. Actually, this is the front and the back. But before I did that, I simply used my tracing wheel to transfer it to the other side. Okay, so I'm sure you can see a red line on that pattern. Actually, while drafting this pattern, while duplicating the front pattern, I actually marked 7.5 inches instead of 8.5. Okay, so the red line is the actual line. Please, I hope we get to understand. If you don't understand, I'll be in the comment section. I went ahead to duplicate the front pattern. So this is a duplicate copy of the front pattern. Okay, after drafting the back. So guys, what I'll simply do next is to use my tracing wheel to trace it to the other side. Okay, remember that we kept our pattern on fold and we drafted on one side. So I'll use my tracing wheel to transfer the same line to the other side, and then I'll use my marker to trace the lines out. So this is exactly what I was trying to explain. So I've extended the lines to the other side, and this is the actual skirt for the duplicate copy of the front pattern. So both of them, I'll be making use of the both pattern for the front part. Okay, so guys, okay, so now where you actually place your slits is dependent on you. You can choose to place it on either the right or the left side. Okay, so I'll be placing my slit on this side where my hands are. Okay, so I'll place my slit there. So what I'll simply do is to use my measuring tape. From the waistline, guys, I'll go in by 2 inches. Okay, so this is not a standard. You can actually look at the thumbnail and know, create a distance for yourself. You could do 1 inch, you could do 1.5, but I actually went in by 2 inches on the waistline. Okay, and then on the slit line, not on the hip line, guys, on the slit line, I'll come in by 7 inches. Okay, so I'll move in. When I place my tape, I'll move inwards by 7 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark 7 inches there. So guys, this is 7 inches. And then on the hemline, I'll go ahead and mark the same, placing my measuring tape. I'll move in by 7.5 inches. So between 7.5, 8.5, it depends on how wide you want your slit to be. So you just go ahead and choose something for yourself. You have to be creative at this moment. Just know the amount of slit you want, exposure you want. If you want a modest slit, this pattern, this particular place will determine how wide your slit will be. Okay, so I actually want a modest slit. That is why I'm marking 7.5. So the difference between 7 and 7.5 is not much. If you want it to be more elaborate, you could do 8.5 or even go beyond 9 inches. Okay, so I'm linking up 7 to 7.5. You can link up 7 to 9.5. So it depends on what you want. So from the waistline, I will simply connect this to the slit line, to the point I marked on the slit line, the 7 inches mark on the slit line, and down to the 7.5 inches on the hemline. Okay. Okay guys, so after linking it up, I'll simply go ahead and eliminate this sharp point here. So I'll use my curvy ruler to achieve it. I'll just place the curvy part like so, and then I will blend it, okay, so that we don't have that point too sharp. Okay, so I think this is okay like this. So I'll simply go ahead and cut out the excess pattern paper. Okay, and then we'll proceed to the next pattern. Okay, so we're still on the front pattern. Remember that I duplicated the front pattern, so we have 2 of it. So I'll go ahead and cut out the excess right here. So this is one pattern for the front. Okay, so for the next pattern, guys, okay, so we'll be using this to overlap the other one. So what I'll simply do is to create the pattern for this in such a way that it will overlap it and still give us the same slit. Okay, so we have our hip line, the waistline, and the slit line. Okay, so just like we did for the other side, I will still be working with 7 inches, okay, so that the 7 inches on this particular point will overlap the 7 inches on the other side. I don't know if it actually makes sense, but while I proceed, I'm sure you get to understand. Okay, so on the same slit line, I will still go in by 7 inches. You can remember that on the previous one I also marked 7 inches. Okay, and then on the hemline, so you can see that this one is going in a different direction, in the opposite direction. The pattern for this other front pattern is going in the opposite direction. So on the other side, I'll just simply go ahead and mark 4 inches. Okay, so I'll link this like this in the opposite direction to the hip line. So I'm connecting the 7 inches mark to the hip line, and then I will link that one down to the 4 inch I marked on the hemline like so. Okay, so I'll simply go ahead and cut out this pattern that I drafted. So guys, if you have watched to this point and you found or learned something good, please do not forget to hit on the like button, okay? And then subscribe on that red button down below. So on placing it, when I overlap it, you can see what I have. So you can go ahead and extend your slit. You can go ahead and widen it, okay? You can extend it. You can see the direction of my hand. You can extend it. Maybe I should use a marker pen so that we can actually get to understand it better, okay? So if you want your slit to be more elaborate than what we have on our working table, you can go ahead and extend it by maybe additional 1.5 inches or additional 2 inches. Just is depending on the exposure you want down there, okay? If you want it to be too much, you can extend it as wide as you want, okay? Feel free to explore this aspect of creativity, okay? So, but this is just an imaginary line. I won't be working with it. I'll be working with the one existing pattern we drafted previously, okay? So I'll simply go ahead and use this pattern on the fabric, okay? So back is back. I'll just, for the front pattern that we drafted, we drafted right away, I'll use it to cut out the fabric, okay? So I've done it, and as you can see, this is what we have here. So guys, as you can see, I added 1/2 inch seam allowance on all the sides, on the waistline, on the center front, on the side fronts, just the parts where required, okay, except the hemline, okay, except the hemline. I think the length of the hemline is okay. So I'll simply go ahead and notch this point. Remember, I didn't cut open the back pattern, so I'll notch both ends. I'll cut it later, but not now, okay? So for now, we just have the front pattern cut out, but the back is still joined together, okay? So I went ahead to also use the same pattern to cut out the lining, but I couldn't bring everything on the work table because it would be too much on the workspace, okay? But just have in mind that we have the same pattern for main fabric and the lining, okay? So what I'll simply do next, I'll simply go ahead and place this like so, right sides facing each other on both sides. Okay, so I'll also attach the other one on the other side. So I'll just take this to my sewing machine and then I'll join it, okay, join it at both ends. And then I'll bring it back for us to see. Then afterwards, I'll also insert the dart, okay, I'll also insert the dart, and then yeah, this is it. I've placed my darts where required. Make sure you place your darts on all the points, all the places where required. Remember, it's on the front and the back, so remember to place your darts as well too, okay? The same thing, it's also applicable to the lining. I've attached both ends and then I placed the darts as well, okay? So what I'll simply do on the lining is, on the lining, I'll reduce the lining by 2 inches. And the reason for this, we'll get to find out if you've never done any illustration on this before, or you've never seen an illustration on this before. So basically, it's for the hem, to cover the hemline. Okay, I hope I'm correct on that. To cover the hemline is just a way of reducing the length of the hemline. Okay, or concealing the hemline, of turning up the hemline. I think that's better. Just a way of turning up the hemline, okay? So guys, I'll simply go ahead and open up the zip allowance. I've actually joined both sides, which is the front pattern on both sides. And please don't forget to relax your seam, it's very important. So I'll just simply cut this open like so. I'll do the same for the lining as well. Whatever I do for the main fabric is also applicable to the lining. So I'll simply cut this open and then I'll take it to my sewing machine and then I'll join this by, yeah, I'll go ahead and join this by 1.5 inches. Okay, so it's going to the zip allowance. Okay, when I join this, where I will insert the zip, just watch me, I'll run a normal temporary stitch here, and then from this point, sorry, a permanent stitch there. Then from this point, I'll run a temporary stitch or a basting stitch. A basting stitch is just a temporary stitch that you can still loosen up when required, okay? So basically that area for the basting stitch is where I'll insert the zip. Okay, so as you can see, I've closed up that seam allowance or the zip allowance, and I've relaxed the seam. You can see how relaxed the seam line is. It's very important that you do this, please. Very, very important. It gives you this very neat finishing. You don't just sew without relaxing your seam. Okay, to be looking too somehow. I don't really know the right word to use for that, but please try and relax your seams. Okay, so you can see how neat it's looking already. You can see how it is. Okay, so I'll just use my seam ripper to open up where I will insert the zip. Okay, so I open up where I'll insert the zip, which is that particular place, and then I'll go ahead and place my zip. I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and attach the zip to that area. You can see how short the zip is. So that is my my zip line. Okay, so you can see I've attached the zip. You can see how neat it's looking. Okay, so what I'll simply do now is to turn it up. I'll use the lining to turn it up to cover the rough edges. So I'll turn it up with the lining. So I'll place it right sides facing each other. Make sure that your seam lines are actually matching when you're placing this, so that you don't miss this. Okay, if your seam lines are not matching, you have issues because you might miss out on that zipper part, which would alter your project. So I'll go ahead and run the stitches on both sides. Okay, first of all, run on the hemline. I'll push it up, and then I'll run on both sides. Okay, and then I'll turn it up. Make sure you notch your seams. Okay, so this is what we have after turning it up. Okay, so I'm here to give this a good press. I'm here to give it a good press. So see the zipper area. You can see how it is there. You can see the hemline. Okay, the reason why I reduced it by 2 inches, you can see how it's looking already on the hemline. So guys, you can see how it is here. So the next thing I'll simply do is to do the finishing for the zip line. So this part is very important. I will simply use the lining to cover up this point. You can see what I did. I placed it on the zipper, and then I will stitch it inside. Okay, please, I will just simply place this like so, and then I will stitch it inside. Okay, you can see where it touches. I'll do it for both sides. So I'll take it to my sewing machine, and then I'll stitch it inside to conceal those zip, to cover up that zip, so that we don't get to see the zip inside. Okay, so I'll stitch it inside. You can see where my hand is, inside. Okay, so I'll grip the lining and the main fabric and stitch it together inside. So in other words, you won't see the stitching. Okay, so guys, you can see I'll just simply turn it out so that we'll see what we actually did. Yeah, so guys, this is what the finishing inside looks like. You can see how neatly finished it is. Okay, it's not a very difficult project. It's not a very difficult thing to do, and you know, the more you get to understand it, the more interesting it becomes. Okay, so I'll be in the comment section, and I'll be glad to attend to all your questions if there's any questions. Okay, if you have any questions for me. Okay, so this is what we have. I'm here to give this a good press. So by the time I give it a good press, you see everything would relax very well. So guys, I'll simply go ahead and place my band, and then after doing it, after placing my band, then our skirt is good to go. So I'll do this, and then I'll bring it back for us to see the final look of this project. Okay, so guys, we've come to the end of the tutorial. This is our tulip skirt, and you can see how it looks like after attaching the waistband. Meanwhile, there's a corset blouse for this skirt. I will drop the link. It's going to be a very interesting tutorial, and I want to appeal to you guys to please check it out. The corset blouse for this skirt, the link will be in the description box. Okay, so this is the back view for this skirt. I will simply go ahead and place a hook on the waistband. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. See you in my next tutorial. Have a blessed day.